always been his voice that has seduced people. Not any extracurricular activities that he's done, just his voice.
He keeps going, and somehow, I think he's the ultimate survivor.
He's just got this amazing kind of bluesy voice that has aged so well, and when you hear it, it gives you goosebumps, basically.
Roderick David Stewart was born in Highgate, North London, as the Second World War was coming to a close. His neighbourhood was bombed just 30 minutes before his birth, giving him the feeling that he almost didn't make it into the world.
By his own admission, he would probably say that he had quite an idyllic childhood. Being the youngest child, he was quite doted upon and exposed to a lot of music quite early on.
He grew up in a very middle-class home. He grew up in a reasonably safe and secure family, and he played football a lot. So indeed, there was nothing in his early life, nothing at all, that would suggest that he would go on to what he's done.
One of Rod's earliest exposures to music was with the family gatherings around the piano, in which they would sing songs by the 30s baritone singer Al Jolson. The young Rod was also caught up in the wake of rock and roll music that swept 50s Britain.
To go from singing Al Jolson songs around the piano as a young man to being exposed to the early rock and roll was an awakening for him, as it was for most of the people that he would go on to play with. Bill Haley in the comics would definitely have been a big moment for him.
In a sense, you can see that Rod Stewart has always been part rock and roll, part Al Jolson ever since that. He's been rock and roll, but he's also had the sensibilities and the romantic leanings of a crooner. He's never escaped those early years.
Rod developed a love for Otis Redding and Sam Cooke and took to the blues circuit with his first band, The Dimensions. However, Rod lost vocal duties to Jimmy Powell and soon left the group, but fate intervened in the form of singer Long John Baldry.
In his late teens, Rod Stewart was already kind of disillusioned with music, and there was one instance that was quite life-changing for him where he was at Twickenham rail station. He was a little bit drunk and he was playing some Howlin' Wolf on his harmonica, and Long John Baldry happened to stumble across him and got talking and recruited Rod Stewart to play in the Hoochie Coochie Men, and that kind of really set him off on this blues rock path.
I can just imagine him kind of wailing along and Long John Baldry just kind of toppling along and kind of just picking him out of nowhere, basically. He must have seen something in him, and it really was kind of like the making of Rod.
Long John Baldry was an interesting character, fairly openly gay, which is quite unusual in the early 60s. Blues singer, quite wild. And Rod Stewart, even from that very early stage, apparently, was very, very ambitious, very clear about what he wanted to do, knew he had a good voice. And this sort of doing blues clubs, and at that time it was a kind of, he had this strange situation where you had all these suburban places which you could play in, Richmond and Twickenham and Dartford and all these places, and they're on that circuit.
Baldry brought Stewart into his band, the Hoochie Coochie Men, but like many of Rod's musical projects in the mid-60s, it was short-lived. However, Baldry and Stewart were soon back together as part of Steam Packet, along with Julie Driscoll. Rod had embraced the mod look by this stage, and the nickname Rod the Mod began to stick as his recognition grew.
He was an early mod. He was in a band called Steam Packet with Julie Driscoll. Apparently, at very, very early gigs, he refused to carry his own guitar. He got the hang of roadies very early on. This is when he was playing in front of about 10 people. So Rod was part of that. I mean, a very cool scene, blues-based, mod-based, quite elitist. He was there from the beginning, really.
Early mod music was really rooted in kind of British R&B, rhythm and blues. So you can definitely see that in a lot of Rod Stewart's early back catalogue. But then as mod kind of moved into, ska and Jamaican music, I think that was kind of where Rod Stewart went a different direction.
After leaving Steam Packet, Rod was quickly picked up by former Yardbirds guitarist Jeff Beck. Rod had been a fan of the Yardbirds, and this opportunity not only gave him a chance to sing with a hero, but also tour extensively across the US in the late 60s.
Jeff Beck was a star, widely acclaimed as one of the great guitarists of his, or indeed any other era. And when Jeff Beck toured, as he did extensively then, it was big news. And for Rod Stewart to go to America with no hits, no career, no real experience behind him, and play there was an eye-opening experience. At first, he was so shy that he would stand beside the speakers, sipping whiskey, just so nobody would see him.
He was famously so nervous that at one of his shows at the Fillmore in San Francisco, he actually sung some of the songs from backstage. So definitely that period in his life was really him getting his training wheels and learning how to be a frontman and turning into the performer he is today.
Whilst on tour with Jeff Beck, Rod met guitarist Ronnie Wood. The two remained friends, and when the Jeff Beck group disbanded, Rod and Ronnie became part of a new band that would be key to the success of both of their careers, Faces.
I love Faces. You felt that you wanted to be in that gang. You know, you just felt that they had a good time. I believe they used to have a bar on stage with them, which always seemed like a great idea. And they just seemed like they're having a laugh, you know, and the songs were fantastic.
They definitely had that kind of boozy quality to their music, but also thanks to Rod's voice, there's a romantic tinge to it. It's just very moving, but very soulful as well.
They were kind of the quintessential Brit rock band of the era, and you can hear their influence in Brit pop bands in the 90s for sure.
Despite his success with Faces, Rod released his own debut solo album, An Old Raincoat Won't Ever Let You Down, the bulk of which was recorded during his time in the Jeff Beck group.
Even today, it remains a terrific album. It's not something that you'd imagine that at the time that Rod Stewart would have in him. It shows what a great interpreter of a song he can be. And it set the template for nearly all his 70s work. But you wouldn't have imagined that he would have come up with it at the time.
Things would change dramatically for Stewart as a solo artist with the release of his third solo album, 1971's Every Picture Tells a Story. The album would make him the first solo artist to achieve the #1 position in both the US and the UK, and would give him his first smash hit single, Maggie May.
Every Picture Tells a Story is an advancement on the record before that, but it's just a stronger record. It's as simple as that, and it had the advantage of Maggie May, which kind of became an unexpected hit.
Maggie May for me is like this amazing cheeky wink of a song. For me it's kind of like definitive Rod the lady killer, Rod the kind of naughty scoundrel who's having a bit of a thing with like an older lady. It was probably quite racy at the time, but I think it's just a beautiful song. It's like young love, basically encapsulated.
It touched a nerve. It was more raw sounding than the homegrown American singer-songwriters. You listen to a James Taylor record and then compare it with Rod Stewart, and the sentiments are the same, the spirit of romance is the same, but the vocals are so, so different.
He suddenly got very, very big indeed. Became a huge star in America. It sort of hit that mid-70s, I wouldn't exactly call it singer-songwriter, but it certainly had that kind of FM rock balladry, which made it very, very accessible across America.
Although the rest of Faces contributed on Rod's solo output, by 1975, tensions grew in regards to his solo success. Ronnie Wood left to join the Rolling Stones, and Faces disbanded that year.
Ronnie Wood being perhaps a little bit disillusioned with the way Rod Stewart's solo career was starting to escalate and overlook everything else that was going on. So it's not a decision that you're really going to turn down to join the Rolling Stones.
Although he was taking a chance, in theory, in leaving the Faces, his solo career had already started. He was already having hits. He was already getting international management. He was already primed to become a very, very successful international recording artiste. And the rest of the faces weren't reliable enough. As Rod Stewart admitted, he enjoyed a drink, he'd taken his share of drugs, but he's never ever gone down the route of sacrificing his career for those pleasures. He's always seen the bigger picture.
The 1975 release of Atlantic Crossing opened Rod to a new, mature market. Its singles were more ballad-driven than his rock years, and he embraced funk and soul.
I am sailing, I am sailing home again, across the sea.
I think Atlantic Crossing marks the point at which Rod Stewart started to become a little bit less interesting and started to play for sales, and very successfully play for sales, I should say. It's got Sailing on it, which is the moment for many that he moved from being one of the great rock and roll singers into being a bit of a cheeseball, quite frankly.
Like a bird across the sky.
There's something refreshingly honest about Rod Stewart, and you can tell even in the title of Atlantic Crossing. It was a man going over to America to make his fortune, but he wasn't the kind of plucky underdog. He was going to make his fortune in America because the tax rates in Britain were too high for someone earning his vast income at that time. And he went and made this album with the Muscle Shoals musicians. They gave him this soul twinge. They gave him a musical authenticity that he'd never had before, and I think he'd probably never have again. And that's what makes Atlantic Crossing such an outstanding record. And I think it's the pivotal moment in Rod Stewart's career. It's the platform on which he became a global superstar.
In an era when punk rock was exploding in the UK, Rod managed to maintain his success. The album A Night on the Town sold huge numbers, but it also saw Rod release the socially aware The Killing of Georgie, Part 1 and 2.
Georgie went to New York town, where he quickly settled down and soon became the toast of the Great White Way.
With a song like The Killing of Georgie, I think he showed a new side to his lyricism. It told the story of a boy who leaves home, he's misunderstood, he's gay, he goes to New York, he becomes the toast of the town, and then he gets beaten up and killed. And it was actually based on a true life story, a friend of Rod's, so it had that extra poignancy.
It's quite a shocking song, actually, The Killing of Georgie. It's not something you associate with Rod Stewart, that kind of story. It's quite dark even now, actually, and for the time it must have been incredibly kind of controversial and like something people weren't singing about that kind of thing.
Before the final curtain fell.
Considering this is his 70s, it's quite a homophobic age. It was brave, it was open-hearted, it was generous. It's a fantastic song, and it's got that kind of ballad form, which Rod's voice is good enough to carry. So it really works.
From the same album, the double A-side release, I Don't Want to Talk About It, and The First Cut Is the Deepest, put Rod in direct opposition to the punk scene of the time.
I would have given you all of my heart, but there's someone who's torn it apart.
He kept the Sex Pistols off #1, allegedly. They rigged the charts so that God Save the Queen wouldn't be #1, and he was #1. So he was, he was the enemy of that scene.
Baby, I'll try to love again, but I know.
The late 70s disco movement influenced the release of Rod's 1978 album Blondes Have More Fun, notably the lead single Do You Think I'm Sexy, which would become his biggest selling single to date, but was not warmly received by most critics.
Do You Think I'm Sexy is a hugely underrated song, and Rod Stewart has said himself that he can understand why people adore it and why they hate it. He can see both sides of it.
kid, I thought it was the most embarrassing thing I'd ever seen. I mean, I just thought it was awful. I kind of like it now. To have a song called Do You Think I'm Sexy, you've really got to be a certain kind of person, haven't you?
Let's spend the night together. Now hold on a minute.
People misjudge it, I think, by its title. The tale in the song is of a couple meeting in a club and he sort of seduces her. But there's an element of insecurity in the verses. There's an element of being unsure how this is going to work out. He's quite a modest, humble bloke. And when he does manage to get a response, he's pretty delighted.
Reach out and touch me, come on, sugar, let me know.
He starts kind of flirting with disco now. Now, soul was okay. Funk, I had a little bit of an issue with. Disco, I have a major issue with. Rod Stewart should not be doing disco. There's actually a Paris Hilton cover version of that, which I marginally prefer.
This girl home.
The 80s saw Rod's career begin to dip. His album sales were strong, but not compared to his previous releases.
The 80s is where it just starts to become a little bit less interesting musically. There's occasional good things, and his voice obviously still, you know, he's got one of those voices that defines any song that he chooses to sing. But around the 80s, Rod Stewart starts to become less interesting.
He continued to make really good singles, and he continued to grow, and he continued to build a new audience. But Out of Control is probably his best album of that period, because, as he had with the Muscle Shoals people a decade previously, he joined up with some proper soulful musicians, in this case, the Chic people.
He had quite a kind of difficult period for a while. He was criticised for kind of a lot of his output, basically. And he came back in the 80s with Out of Order, which was the first album that people were nice about and kind about. I think it's really testament to him as an artist that he kept going throughout that. He was seen as pretty uncool, but that album kind of established him again. It was like, hey, look, I'm still here and I'm still relevant and I'm still a great performer and a great artist. So I think that was a really important album for him.
I wish that I knew what I know now.
The mixed response to much of his 80s work saw Rod largely abandon writing new material in the 90s. He continued to tour extensively as he released the albums A Spanner in the Works and When We Were the New Boys, which featured numerous covers. Rod's career took a new path at the beginning of the millennium when he signed with Clive Davis's record label. He released a collection of covers from the Great American Songbook, which gave him 5 multi-platinum albums and sold-out arena tours.
Give you your way.
Rod Stewart's career was in trouble, and it wasn't clear who his audience was anymore, even though he's still a huge name. And Clive Davis had this idea of saying, well, why didn't you go back and do the Great American Songbook? Just do the classics.
Say what you want about them, but they do sell, and I guess if you've got one of those voices that defines songs that you sing, there are no end of Great American songs in the book that you can go on and sing, and lots of people will buy, like my mum.
I feel like a lot of the time when rock stars get to a certain age, they think, oh, I need to be kept in the public eye a little bit, but I'm a little bit too lazy to write some new songs. So in 2002, Rod Stewart decided to start his Great American Songbook journey. He's reinterpreting the classics, and it won him a Grammy, so he's doing something right.
In 2013, at the age of 68, and after a successful autobiography, Rod announced a new album, Time. It would be his first original material for 20 years.
She makes me happy when the clouds are gray. Every day like Christmas when she's in my house. She makes me happy and I wanna shout.
He did his autobiography, which is brilliant and really funny and self-deprecating, and I think it reminded him of how he felt when he was actually doing original material.
Rod could surprise us yet. He could pull out an amazing song. If you think that he started in roughly the mid-60s, and he's had plenty of peaks and troughs since then, and he keeps going, and somehow he comes out on top.
I didn't know what day it was when you walked into the room.
Rod's legacy will probably come down to the numbers, which are pretty impressive. You know, over 100 million albums sold, 6 consecutive #1 albums, and Do You Think I'm Sexy, which is definitely going to be hanging around his neck until he dies.
Yarns that were so lyrical.
This is the thing about singers. You know a real singer with the phrasing and with the timing, when to breathe, when to pause. Frank Sinatra had it, Pavarotti had it as well. I think Rod Stewart has it completely. He knows how to nail a song. There's no sloppiness with Rod.
Maggie May will always be played on the radio, and hopefully Maggie May will lead other people to those solo records, because they are great records. You know, all of the Faces records and his early solo records, there are great rock and roll records that need to be rediscovered for generations.
You're in my